That is All-Star snubs. Trae Young, 27 points and 11 assists. All-Star snub. Like, this conversation will get a little interesting because it's like the tale of two tapes, and yet both of them kind of got screwed. Which is, this is a very like statistical driven league. Like, you look at analytics, you look at guys. You have some guys play for stats to get their contracts, to do all these things. Like, it is a very statistical driven league. That's how you get awards. That's how you get the mentions, the honors. It is stat driven. No question about it. So now, if the league is stat driven, these things shall get interesting. That is, Trae Young, 27 points, 11 assists, currently on a 4-game winning streak and currently 10th in the standings. So they're currently the last team in the play-in game, half a game out of 9th place, a few games out of 8th place. So now you may say, okay, they have not had a successful season, which is indeed true. But in saying that, then that does not explain why Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox was snubbed. De'Aaron Fox is averaging 27.5 points and 5 assists. The Kings are currently at 5th in the West and has been in the top for most of the year. But they're currently at 5th, which means very much so in the playoffs. Right there next to home court advantage in the first round, but they're in 5th, 27-5. You got Domantas Sabonis averaging 19.9 points, so we just going to give him 20. 13 rebounds and 8 assists. And the Kings are in 5th place. Now that's interesting because in a stat-driven league, we have the tale of two tapes, which is one team that's right on the brink of the playoffs, another team that is firmly into the playoff picture right now. All three with incredible stats. None make the All-Star game. Now, the one thing that I can understand is De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis probably pulled votes from each other because they probably will both be wild cards. You look at the All-Star rosters, and you got Karl Anthony Towns as a backup in the West. You got Anthony Davis as a backup in the West. And so that right there, and there's one more Kawhi Leonard, I think. Is Kawhi a backup in the West, or is Kawhi a starter? No, Kawhi is not a starter. Kawhi is a backup. So there's your 3 front court players. Then you get 2 backcourt players, and then you get 2 wild cards. So now the wild cards, in which is what De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis would be fighting for if you look at the roster, they probably pulled votes from each other. Because if you're looking at them, you're like, it's Sabonis from me for that team. It's Fox for me from that team. And so in turn, I think they pull votes from each other. And when they pull votes from each other, then someone else kind of slides in that's solely getting the votes from their team. So for instance, an AD is solely getting the vote from the Lakers because Bron's a starter. Now you look at them and you say, wow, they got 2 guys into the All-Star game, and they are currently in 9th place and have been around 9th through 11th most of the year. And they got 2 All-Stars in the game. But, like, which one of those guys do you take out? Like, because it's also a fan thing. Like, for instance, Bron is a starter in part due to fans, media, and then also players. But let's face it, like, Bron's going to be a starter. Does AD deserve not to make it? AD's been playing all season. Everybody's complaint had been games, and he's played a bunch of games, and he's producing at a high level. So should he not make it, but yet their team is in 9th? So again, it starts to weigh those things of what is the criteria? There's never been a set criteria. Is it your team success, personal success, a combination of both? Again, the Kings guys and Fox and Sabonis kind of proves that the combination of both may be screwing you a bit. And so it's very interesting. And like I said, I don't have anything for the Trae Young situation other than, you know, they say a lot of coaches or a lot of people don't appreciate Trae's style of play. You know, so he'd be voted in by the coaches and they don't appreciate his style of play or how he competes on the defensive end or whatever. I'll tell you what, guarding Trae Young is hell. Hell. Like, the way he uses his live threats, the way he uses the guys around him, he's great in the pick and roll. He's super fast. Obviously, we know he can shoot the blood out the ball. He gets in between, you know, the rim, that kind of mid-range area, kind of floaters, good finishing around the rim, all of that. So, listen, I hear people complaints and all of that, but I'm going to tell you, as someone who have to guard, it's hell guarding Trae Young. Now, yes, Trae Young uses different things to get by, drawing different fouls and different stuff like that. Of course. But most of the great scorers in the league use things like that. So to average 27 and 11 and not make the All-Star, and like this is the third year where he's averaged like 25 plus points, 10 assists dang near, and didn't make the All-Star team. And I just find that very interesting because I've seen guys make it off stats alone in previous years. And for some reason, that just does not apply to Trae Young. Now,
DraftKings, the leader in fantasy sports, just dropped a brand new fantasy game called Pick 6. It's the newest way for you to get in on fantasy football action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Just pick between 2 and 6 NFL players and predict if they're going to have more or less of a stat. For example, a player will have more or less than 100 rushing yards or more than 1 touchdown. Okay? Track your lineup, compete against others for a shot at a huge cash prize. Fantastic. DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Sign up now. Takes 90 seconds. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. The crown is yours.
You got Julius Randle out and you have possibly Joel both missing the All-Star game. And if they do, let's see, who would our subs be or replacements for the East? You got a group of Trae Young. You got a group of Scotty Barnes. You have
Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam, Kristaps, Drew Holiday.
Yes, there's your list right there. By the way, for all y'all, there's Jackson stepping in, helping me out, keeping us rolling. So, yeah, you have a list of about 5 or 6 guys who could get in. I personally think with the talk around Trae, you know, with a replacement being named, he's already an all-star. All-stars usually get the nod. I also can see that, him as one of the replacements. A lot of people said Scotty Barnes. I think Scotty's growth has been incredible. I probably would lean a little more. Jimmy's missed quite a few games. And so I think that'll work against Jimmy. Jimmy, quite honestly, doesn't care about being an all-star or anything else anyway. You got Kristaps Porzingis, who I think has had a good year, and their team is right at the top of the East. Number 1, actually, by 4 games. And so, however, that team also does have 2 all-stars on it already. Do you get 3? I mean, there's no other all-star for Cleveland this year. The Knicks got both of those guys. There's no other all-star for Philly. There's no other all-star for Indiana. Pascal got traded to Indiana, so maybe Pascal. There's no other all-star from Miami, Orlando, Chicago, maybe DeMar. And so when you start to look at it, I think Trae Young gets in, and it'll be interesting to see who that second person would be. like I said, I think it'll probably be Kristaps, maybe Drew Holiday. One of those guys, I think probably more Kristaps. But there you go. You may have a couple replacements on that side of things, and it'll be interesting to see. Just for your information, the replacements are picked by Commissioner Adam Silver. That's who choose the replacements. And so we'll see. But like I said, I don't have a good explanation for you. Other than the ones that I've given you. Because, again, that's two different tales of the tape. One team is winning, one team is not. All three got crazy stats, and none of them make the All-Star game. Wow. Especially, with you think like Fox coming off the playoffs he had and the different things, and then to come back producing like he is, you think that he takes that next step in respect. And then you got, it's funny because stuff like this always happen where you got guys making their next jump. And depending on the jump of others can affect someone else's jump. We've seen it for years with Mike Conley being in the Western Conference and not being able to get an All-Star bid because Russell Westbrook is in the Western Conference, Steph Curry's in the Western Conference. The list goes on and on of guys who's in. Then all of a sudden you had Luka coming into the Western Conference on the tail end. The list goes on and on over the years. Tony Parker, Darren Williams, Damian Lillard, Klay Thompson. The list goes on and on where it kind of Chris Paul, where it hurt Mike Conley. And so you could be seeing one of those situations as well where Shea is playing so great. Anthony Edwards is playing so great. So you got those young guys in the West, right? You still got the Steph Curry. You still got Luka Doncic, right? You still got these different guys. And sometimes guys just get squoze. And it's unfortunate. Somebody was saying the other day, maybe they should raise the All-Star game to 15. No, the hell they shouldn't. No, they should not raise the All-Star game to 15. That's not happening. One more thing on the All-Star game, and then I got one last thing to hit on, and then we're going to get out of here. Adrian Griffin, Doc Rivers, let's rewind a little bit. Doc Rivers is the head coach, after coaching 3 games, the head coach of the Eastern Conference All-Stars. That's crazy. Let me tell you why that's crazy. Number one, y'all know I got mad love for Doc. And Doc says something which I commend him on. Doc has always been a stand-up gentleman. He's been in the NBA his whole life. That's why. Stand-up person. Stand-up gentleman. Nothing but respect and love for Doc. Absolutely insane that he's coaching the Eastern Conference All-Star game when he was just talking at the Warriors game analyzing the game a week and a half ago. But Doc said that the ring from the All-Star game and the bonus will be going to Adrian Griffin. Respect that. Respect the hell out of that. Me personally, I think Adrian Griffin should have still been the coach of the All-Star team. And here's why I think that. Because Adrian Griffin earned the right to be the coach of an All-Star team. In his first year, he earned the right being number 2 in the conference because last year Boston was number 1, so Joe Mazzulla and his staff was the coach. You cannot coach in the All-Star game 2 years in a row. That's why when the Dubs was dominating all those things, you wouldn't see Steve coaching the All-Star game every year because you can't coach it 2 years in a row. So Joe Mazzulla and his staff are automatically disqualified, which means it moves on to the next team, which is number 2 seed, Milwaukee Bucks. And Adrian Griffin coached that team to the number 2 seed before he was fired. In turn, they get the nod. Well, now the head coach is Doc. Why I personally think Adrian Griffin should be the head coach of the All-Star team is because if a player got traded today, but they're an All-Star, guess what? They're still going to be an All-Star. So this man gets fired a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Why shouldn't he still coach the All-Star team? The work was done. The work was done. So I don't quite understand that. If a player got traded and he makes the All-Star team, He's going to show up to that team as an Indiana Pacer as opposed to a Toronto Raptor. Pascal Siakam is the most recent trade that came to my mind, but like, he's still be in the All-Star game. So I'm not quite certain why Adrian Griffin isn't still the coach of the All-Star game. But like I said, I commend Doc. And that also could get weird as hell, though, because Giannis kind of got a sign off on him getting fired, and Dame probably had to sign off to some degree. And so that could get a little awkward, knowing that these two guys signed off on you getting booted. And now you got to coach them in the All-Star game where, hey, everybody celebrated. That could get quite awkward, and maybe that's why. But however, Adrian Griffin, we don't know if Adrian Griffin will ever get another head coaching job in this league. In the 1 year that he did have a head coaching job for all of 4 months, he coached a team to be in position that he be an All-Star game coach. And he won't get it. And I'm not sure he'll ever have that opportunity again. And that sucks. So I wish they could have figured something out for Adrian Griffin to still be the coach of the Eastern Conference All-Stars, because he deserved that. And he got booted a little too soon. And that sucks. So wishing well for Adrian Griffin. And like I said, hats off to Doc. Much respect and love. Respect the hell out of that.